The most crucial game is a historic Columbo episode because it's the first to feature a returning killer in the form of Robert Culp, here playing Paul Hanlon, general manager of the LA Rockets football team. Our victim is the team's actual owner, layabout party boy Eric Wagner, played by Dean Stockwell. During a football game, Hanlon sneaks out of the stadium and steals an ice cream truck, driving across town in the most incredible disguise you'll ever see. Talk about killer sunglasses. He even drives off on this poor kid just trying to order some ice cream. That's how you know he's one mean son of a bitch. Over at Wagner's, he bonks him on the head with the world's largest ice cube and leaves him to drown, seemingly in a tragic accident. When Columbo arrives, he drinks some of the pool water that the dead body was floating in for several hours. What the fuck? Random fun fact here, the medical examiner in this episode is played by the same guy who appeared in the same role in Culp's debut, Death Lends a Hand. Also, Eric Wagner's house is the same one that Ken Franklin lived in Murder by the Book. Wonder if Eric moved in after Ken went to jail? I'd certainly kill to live here. What a view. Though, speaking of, one area where this episode really falls down right out the gate is lack of a clear motive on Hanlon's part. It's said several times in the episode that Columbo can't find a motive for the crime, but then he just seems to forget about it. It's implied that Hanlon might be making moves on Eric's now widow, or that Eric's lack of ambition was holding Hanlon back from creating a sports empire, but neither of these are really fleshed out enough, and Columbo himself never seems to join the dots. Other than that, Paul Hanlon is a great villain. As Investigator Brimmer, Culp played a man struggling with his own barely concealed rage. Here, there's no attempt at concealment at all.
Columbo, I'm gonna throw you out of here on your ear.
Rizzo, I'll call you anytime I feel like it. And get this straight. You can't make up your mind on third down, you call me. On a field phone.
All right, Lieutenant.
Hanlon is pissed off literally all of the time, and he does not care who knows it.
Are you in it yet?
In fact, it's a brief moment of calm that leads Columbo to suspect Hanlon in the first place, since why, when his team was having such a dogshit game, was the notoriously bad-tempered Hanlon not in a worse mood? Maybe he had other things on his mind? The usual veneer of politeness most Columbo killers put on is also absent here.
You are Mr. Paul Hanlon, aren't you? I've seen your pictures in the newspaper.
I'm busy now.
He's fed up with Columbo right out the gate, and the relationship never really gets any more amicable from there.
All right, Columbo. Now, what do you want?
He's bad to the bone, and is even rocking an evil mustache to boot. This is far from one of my favorite episodes, but I can't fault Culp's performance. He's far and away this adventure's biggest strength, and watching him share the screen with Falk is always a delight.
Columbo, I'm trying to watch this game. What is it?
My problems with this episode are just about everything else, and that's including the mystery of the motive.
Oh, no.
For one thing, how Columbo even deduces that there was a murder committed is a bit of a stretch. Hanlon sprayed down the pool with a hose to cover his own footprints, and when Columbo shows up, the decking is still wet. Mysterious, right? Surely there has to have been foul play involved. But how had the water from the hose not dried up in the sun hours after the fact? Remember that in the meantime, the murder weapon itself, this big chunk of ice, was supposed to have melted away into nothing by being submerged in the bottom of the pool. How did the water take longer to dry than the ice did to melt? The scoring is also questionable. Look at this scene, which is supposed to be serious, but then funny music starts playing.
I don't know anybody in the whole world that would want to see him dead.
Then in a later scene, where Columbo does nothing all that interesting, just walks into an airport, suspenseful music plays. This was the second score composed by Dick DeBenedictis, who made his debut with Etude in Black. He'd go on to be the series' most prolific composer, contributing to a total of 23 episodes, and I don't mean to fault his talents as a musician. The music itself is fine, I just think it was arranged, or I guess presented, in an odd manner. Then again, this could have been a choice made by someone other than DeBenedictis, say the director or the editor, but as far as I know, it usually isn't. These things are usually up to the composer, but again, that could be a misunderstanding on my part, and it did distract me at some points during this episode. Then there's a whole subplot involving wiretaps, private dicks, and apparently unrequited love that seems so convoluted I could almost skip right over it if not for the fact that the gotcha itself hinges on the revelation of this storyline. So, Columbo catches a private investigator named Ralph Dobbs breaking into Wagner's house and learns that Dobbs had been hired to bug the phones in both the Wagner house and Hanlon's office booth at the stadium. Who hired him? Well, it was actually Eric's lawyer, played by Marshall Applewhite by the looks of it. And for what purpose? To prove to Eric's wife that Eric was playing around because he really cares about Eric's wife, I guess? What's worse for Columbo is that the bugged phone line now gives Paul a solid alibi for the time of the murder, as it at least sounds like he's in his booth watching the game. Columbo confronts Dobbs, refusing to return his valuable equipment unless he can help him nail Hanlon. These scenes where we see a more tough-talking Columbo, away from the prying eyes of the man he's really after, are a nice glimpse of a side of the character we're not usually privy to. Dobbs is played by regular bit player Val Avery, in his second appearance after the Harbour Master in Dead Weight. He was yet another friend of Fox that he helped to get small roles in the series, and their scenes together are always good stuff.
Listen, will you go find yourself another suspect? Ah, come on, Lieutenant, cut it out. I gotta have my equipment back.
Oh, listen, by the way, how did you manage to plant those phone bugs in the first place?
Anyway, Dobbs directs the lieutenant to Eve Babcock, a call girl who posed as Eric's secretary in order to plant the bugs in Hanlon's office on Dobbs' behalf. We get a pretty funny scene here where Columbo pays Eve a visit and she mistakes him for a client.
Smitty, this is my cousin. He was just leaving, weren't you, honey?
Yeah, how are you?
Fine. Oh, I know a lot of people in Cincinnati. Oh, yes. Incidentally, my name is Lieutenant Columbo. I'm from the Los Angeles Police Department.
Miss Babcock, about those stocks, I'll call you.
The point of all this is that Columbo figures out from Eve that Hanlon actually knew Eric's phone was bugged and was able to take advantage of this when creating his alibi. Hanlon brought a portable radio with him and held it up next to the public payphone he was using to talk to Eric, making it appear that he was talking him from the booth still at the football game.
I got the radio on here in a box. I guess it's a little loud.
Columbo presents the recording of the phone call to Paul in his office, explaining that he was trying to find something on the audio that wasn't supposed to be there. A dog barking, a car passing, anything that would prove he wasn't really in the booth at the time. But he couldn't find anything until he realized he should be looking not for something that shouldn't be there, but something that should but isn't.
But are you in it yet?
Will 20 more laps satisfy you? I told you I'd be ready, didn't I? Now get off my back, Hanlon. Pick me up at 5:30. You got that?
Yes, there's a cuckoo clock in Hanlon's office that goes off at the same time every day, the exact same time that he was on his way to kill Eric Wagner. The fact that it can't be heard on the tape means he's guilty, except it doesn't.
I don't. So what?
Yes, it breaks Paul's alibi, but that's a far cry from proving he did it. It doesn't exactly place him at the scene of the killing itself, and it's not like Columbo has also, I don't know, proved that he had a motive to kill Eric, which would at least help his case. I don't know, I do think it's a good clue, but not a strong enough one on its own to be the final clue.
Columbo, are you in charge of this mess or not?
Sir, I'm only trying to solve a murder and...
The Most Crucial Game is an episode with many problems that still succeeds at being quite watchable thanks to the strength of its lead performance. This is Robert Culp at his most fun, holding nothing back, the living embodiment of wrath and fury.
No, I want that watchman fired. You get in touch with my attorneys and get them to meet me over here.
And he gets to deliver one of my favorite lines of the entire series.
I think I've got it. It took me a minute to connect with the word chick.
Peter Falk is also great as always. He had a reputation for ad-libbing his own lines to keep his fellow actors off kilter when dealing with Columbo. This happened many times in the series, but this episode contains maybe the only confirmed instance of what was definitely an ad-lib.
Sir,
Yes?
you don't mind if I ask you a personal question, do you?
No.
What'd you pay for those shoes?
I think about $60.
Moments like this do, for all of its faults, make The Most Crucial Game worth watching, at least once.
Kind words from a loyal fan are very rare.